In this video, you will see how to create project revision sequences and assign revisions to individual sheets. And you will also see how to create a revision cloud to help identify changes. As a project develops, changes and updates will be made to the design, which will mean that the drawings need to be updated and reprinted to show the latest information. To keep track of changes and help identify the latest version of drawings, revisions are applied to individual sheets, giving details of the changes and the date that they were made. I have the exercise file Assign Revisions open, and in this project we have a number of sheets that will need to be revised and reprinted as the project develops. We're currently looking at the sheet A101 Elevations, and I'll also open the sheet A102, which is the Floor 2 Internal Layout Plan. To define revisions for the project, we'll go to the View ribbon tab, and from the Sheet Composition panel, we'll click the Revisions tool. And in the Sheet Issues Revision settings here, we can see the numbering is currently set to be per sheet. And this means that as we add more revisions into the sequence and assign those to individual sheets, the revision number will remain sequential upon each individual sheet, even if some of the revisions are missed out on that sheet. If the numbering was set to be per project, then the sequence would be set here in the issue and revision settings, which might lead to gaps in the sequence if certain revisions don't apply to all of the sheets. So we'll leave the numbering set to be per sheet, and now looking further down, we'll click the numbering button here to customize the numbering sequence. So we can see we have two numbering sequences created, alphanumeric and numeric. And with alphanumeric selected, I'll click the Edit Numbering sequence at the bottom here, and we can see now that this will give us the letters of the alphabet as the revision sequence. So I'll click Cancel to close this, and now we'll select the numeric type here, and then click to edit the numbering sequence. And we can see that this is now a sequence of numbers, starting at number 1. Commonplace in construction drawings now is to have two different revision sequences, one for provisional revisions that represent changes to designs that need to be checked and approved, before being formally issued as a contractual revision. To distinguish between these, a prefix is normally placed before the number, and the letter P is used for provisional, and C is used for contractual. So let's edit this numeric version here to be the provisional revision sequence. So we'll change its name to provisional, and we'll set the minimum number of digits to be 2, and then we'll set the prefix to be letter P. Now we can click OK to save those changes, and now we'll click to create a new numbering sequence, and we'll set the name to be contractual, and then we'll set the prefix to be the letter C, and then we'll click OK to save this numbering sequence. So now that we have those new numbering sequences, we'll click OK to save the changes. Now looking at the actual list of revisions, we can see we have the first one entered, and it's currently set to be alphanumeric. So we'll change this to be a provisional revision, and then we'll click OK to save those changes. Now looking at the sheet, we'll go to the Identity Data panel in the Properties palette here, and at the bottom we'll click the Edit button next to the revisions on sheet. In here we can see we have the first issue revision listed, so we'll select the Show in Revision schedule and click OK. And now zooming in closer to the title block, we can see that entered in, and it has the sequence of P01. So now I'll swap to the A101 Elevations sheet here, and again click the Edit next to Revisions on sheet, and we'll select the first issue revision to be shown in the schedule, and then we'll click OK. And again, in the title block here, we can see that revision P01 is added to this sheet. So now I'll go back to the View ribbon tab, and from the Sheet Composition panel, we'll click on the Revisions button. And now we'll click the Add button to add the second revision, and we'll set the date to be 10/8/22, and the description will be Roof Slope Changed. Now we have that, we'll click Add once more, And again, we'll leave this as a provisional revision, and we'll set the date to be 10/8/22, the same as previously. And the description for this will be internal layout altered. So now we'll click OK to save those changes. And on the elevation sheet just here, we'll click the edit button next to revisions on sheet. And here we'll check the sequence 2 roof slope changed revision to be shown in the schedule, but we won't check the internal layout altered. And then we'll click OK. And we can see now that that has been added into the revision history here, and this is now PO2 with roof slope changed. I'll swap to the internal layout sheet and click the edit button for the revisions on sheet. And this time we'll select the internal layout altered revision to be shown, and then click OK. And we can see that this becomes revision PO2, keeping that sequence going on the individual sheet. So now we'll go back to the View ribbon tab, and we'll click the Revisions button on the sheet composition panel. And then we'll click Add to add a new revision into the sequence. And this time we'll change the numbering to be contractual. We'll set the date to be 10/12/22. And the description will be construction issue. Then we'll click OK to save those changes. And now on the sheet here, we'll click the edit button next to revisions on sheet. And we'll select the construction issue revision to be shown in the schedule. And then we'll click OK. And we can see now that that's created revision C1 with the construction issue description. I'll swap to the elevation sheet. And again, we'll click the edit button for the revisions on sheet and select the construction issue revision to be shown in the schedule. And then we'll click OK. And again, we can see that C1 revision on this sheet as well. So now we'll go back to the View ribbon tab and we'll click the Revisions button once more. And then we'll click Add. And we'll change this to be a provisional revision again. And we'll set the date to be 10/15/22. And the description will be stair layout altered. Now we'll click OK to close the revisions. And we'll swap to the internal layout drawing sheet here. And now we'll click to edit the revisions on sheet. And we'll check the stair layout altered revision. And then click OK. And we can see now that that swaps back to be a P revision for provisional. And it's P3, keeping the sequence going with the previous provisional revisions. So now we might need to indicate on the drawing sheet exactly where those changes have been made. And to do this, we'll use a revision cloud. So we'll go to the Annotate ribbon tab, and on the detail panel here, we'll click the Revision Cloud button. And looking at the ribbon here, we can see we have the rectangle draw tool enabled. So we just need to draw the rectangle around the stairs here in the plan. We can see that cloud being created. So we'll click Finish Edit Mode to finish creating it. Now we can see that that cloud has been placed. We'll go to the Annotate ribbon tab again, and from the Tag panel here, we'll click Tag by Category. And now we can come and select the Revision Cloud. And we can see now that that tag has been added to that revision cloud, indicating that it's revision PO3, which corresponds to the revision schedule on the sheet here. So this now helps us to identify the areas that have been changed with this revision, and makes it easier to compare with earlier versions of the drawing. And that now completes adding the revisions to our sheets.